For the people of Tigray, northern Ethiopia, this is a queue with a difference. They aren't queuing for food, but for tree seedlings. Ilala Nursery, just outside Mekele, the capital of Tigray. More than 500,000 tree seedlings were distributed free to the people of Mekele and the surrounding areas. Similar distributions were carried out in other towns throughout Tigray as part of the struggle against drought. The people are working with the Relief Society of Tigray, or REST, to address the root causes of drought, famine, and underdevelopment. Tigray is the heartland of historic Ethiopia. Agriculture here goes back more than 3,000 years. The kingdom of Aksum, which erected these granite obelisks, extended across the Red Sea into Arabia. It had its own coinage, traded as far as India and China, and translated works on mathematics and astronomy into Ge'ez, the language from which Tigrinya and Amharinya originate. Just outside Aksum are the 3,000-year-old remains of the palace of the legendary Queen Sheba, who is said to have traveled to Jerusalem and who came back bearing the child of King Solomon. The church of Miriam Sion is built on the site of Ethiopia's first church. The Aksumite kingdom was Christian before Europe. Under the imperial regime of Haile Selassie, land was largely owned by members of the feudal nobility and the church. With the exception of some commercial farms, it was said that agriculture in Ethiopia had changed little in 3,000 years. Dissatisfaction with the lack of progress and democracy created the movement which led to the overthrow of Haile Selassie in 1974. Starting with a series of strikes and demonstrations in the towns, the revolution was then hijacked by a committee of army officers called the Derg, led by Mengistu Haile Mariam, who announced that the army was taking power because no class in Ethiopia had sufficient political maturity for the task. Mengistu's usurpation of power and the use of the army against the people met with resistance throughout Ethiopia and Eritrea. In Tigray, the struggle has been led by the Tigray People's Liberation Front, or TPLF. In the last 2 years, the TPLF has joined with other opposition movements outside Tigray to form the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front.
In my opinion, drought and famine is quite related to the system of government. You see, in Ethiopia, any past or previous government didn't pay attention to development. Haile Selassie's government was building army to rule Eritrea and to suppress the other people of Ethiopia. It was spending a lot on defense and the establishing police machinery. And the Dergs continued that. Almost 70 to 80% of the budget of the Derg was spent on war. They were not standing for peace and development. One can, you see, even a single coin has not been spent on agriculture, on industry. It was spent on defense. Most of the money was spent on defense. Nothing has been done to the agricultural areas, to the rural areas. So famine was inevitable. Drought was inevitable.
In February 1989, the Ethiopian army pulled out of Tigray after suffering a series of defeats at the hands of the TPLF. Public facilities, like the power station in Mekele, paid for by the Tigrayans' voluntary contributions, were destroyed by government troops.
It was at the end of February 1989. 2 tanks came down from the fort in the Yezus. First, they planted dynamite all around the generators. Then they pulled back to the Don Bosco Technical School and fired. It was the shells and the dynamite that destroyed everything.
Now, the whole of Tigray is under the control of the TPLF and local elected councils. Since the ground fighting has shifted south, Tigray is enjoying relative peace for the first time in 15 years. Now, the only danger comes from government air raids, for which the population have prepared themselves as best they can. With this relative peace, the process of democratization has gone forward. Elected local councils, or baitos, provide the administrative structure of Tigray. They are responsible for providing services, the making of local laws and ordinances, and for environmental protection. The baito system has now been extended to the liberated towns.
Under the dirge, there were elections, but they were nominal. Only government party members could stand. Since the TPLF took over, the people have been able to vote freely and be heard. They make their own laws, choose their own representatives, are free to criticize them, and if necessary, to dismiss them.
In this process, women have taken part. They are represented in all councils, and their rights in marriage, divorce, and the ownership of land and property have been enshrined in law. There is freedom to practice religion.
Under the dirge, we were abused a lot. At meetings, they used to tell people not to baptize their children. Government employees were not allowed to go to church. Now, the church has full rights. On the main feast days, people come to worship from all over the country.
Tigray's Muslim minority share these feelings.
During the dirge time, and even before, we were told that the country is for all and religion is private, but we never saw these principles implemented. Prayer, fasting and burials were often interfered with, and divisions among the people were openly encouraged. Now the situation is different. We are free. Our children go to Quranic school. We pray without interference. Thanks be to God.
Extension of democratic rights and the consolidation of the councils is a matter for celebration. Here, the people of Abiadi in central Tigray are celebrating the re-establishment of the district council. This year, Tigray faced a major food deficit following the failure of the main rains in 1989. In the distribution of relief supplies, the role of the baitos has been crucial. The situation was nearly as bad as that of 1984-85, when hundreds of thousands died either from hunger or from disease in the large feeding camps set up to deal with the crisis. The difference this year is that the Tigrayans themselves have administered the crisis. Hymanot has come to Rest's distribution center at Wakamba to get rations.
We've come here to get food aid. We have nothing left to eat because of the drought. This year was nearly as bad as 1984-5. The difference is that our food is reaching us in our homes, so we are able to stay on our own land, working on terracing and preparing for the rains. We are also being taught how to select the best seeds. In 1984-5, there were many dangers. The government was taking people away for resettlement in the south, and there was conscription. Half our village left for Sudan, and many died on the road from lack of food and water. This year, we have all stayed.
Famine of 89 and 90 is under control. Due to the failure of rain, about 2.22 people were affected in Tigray. Compared this year's drought with the last successive years, major disasters have been alleviated. And this is due to the right adaptation of policies and strategies. And the policy and the strategy was to get food into the situation of the people by preventing establishment of large camps or mass dislocation or exodus or like 8485. Second, by the full participation of the people. The people were very cooperative and they fully accepted the policies to reach the poorest of the poor and to avoid the disaster because the resources which were available were quite meager. So, to avoid disaster, the whole population were mobilized, and by screening the right beneficiaries, they prevented this major disaster. And third is the generosity of individuals, charities, organizations, mainly NGOs, and few governments. But by adopting the right policies, we have avoided the scenario of skeletons, and we have avoided the scenario of many people leaving their villages, abandoning their houses.
At this meeting, representatives from one of the drought-affected areas are having a final discussion on the list of beneficiaries. This grassroots method of targeting the poorest of the poor, of having lists drawn up by local councils, made public and, if necessary, revised, is a radical departure from the past. Previously, people living in areas outside government control received no rations, and in those areas under the control of the government, lists were drawn up by government functionaries. Relief distributions are used constructively. People don't simply pick up the food and walk away. Here, an agricultural extension worker is leading a discussion on soil and water conservation and the importance of terracing, with contributions from the audience.
We have invested a lot of time and money on the construction of dams and terraces this summer. Now the rains have come, we have to make sure the terraces aren't breached. We have to keep reinforcing them until they settle and the grass grows that will hold them together. The restraining wall is filled with soil and it is stabilized.
Agriculture in Tigray depends on draft animals. Traditionally, the ox plough requires 2 oxen. Here, a single ox plough is being demonstrated.
Most of us Tigrayans are poor farmers. If a farmer only has 1 ox, he should be able to plough with it. We can see from this demonstration that it's possible if the soil is not too hard and the field is flat. Of course, the ox has to be trained. We could improve the plough itself too.
REST gets relief food to the people in 2 ways. One way is through the cross-border operation, whereby supplies are trucked in from Sudan. A new all-weather road is being built in one section in western Tigray. REST has depots and garages where repairs to lorries can be carried out. These farmers have come to sell their surplus grain to REST purchasing officers. Their area has had enough rain. And this program of internal purchase has many advantages. It cuts down on delivery time of relief supplies, it provides food that people are used to, and most importantly, it stimulates the local market and puts money into the economy. Producers are guaranteed a fair price based on the free market, which provides an incentive to produce more. Tigray's problems cannot be solved by the distribution of relief supplies. The people have been mobilized to terrace hillsides and agricultural land.
As you can see from that hill over there, all those areas on the mountains have been planted with trees. No one is allowed to cut any of the trees down for firewood.
Currently, we are giving priority to terracing. But since terracing requires much labor input, and unless the peasants are able to feed themselves, it's very difficult for the peasant to fully participate in such kind of work. REST has been asking agencies and the international community to support the Tigrayan peasant farmers to terrace their land. And we have been asking agencies to support us food for recovery programs, essentially to terrace the land that's the mainstay of the economy. As you can see on the hillside, this area has been restricted in the last 3 to 5 years' time. Peasant farmers were not allowed to graze their livestock in these places. You can see the right side of the hill is very green, while the other side is very dry and with less vegetation. This is one of the projects that we are trying to introduce in order to make sure that the peasants will adapt ecologically sound farms. And it's in the history, it's for the first time in the history of the Tigrayan people and also the Ethiopian people that such kind of community-oriented programs have been carried. Now, more than any time ever, peasant farmers in Tigray know that they can improve their lots by working hard and by working persistently on the land. For this, we need enormous assistance. We have been deprived development assistance for a long time. We REST people work closely with the local baitos, with the councils. Projects are initiated by the people themselves. They discuss it, they draw programs, then they approve it. Once it's approved, they submit it to REST. Since REST is here only to obtain international assistance from various sources, the people know that unless they fully participate, unless they fully learn how to implement it, they don't initiate such programs. It's this experience that differs the experience here in Tigray from other experiences in Ethiopia and in other countries also. The people are the masters of their destinies.
Each area has a seed trial center where farmers can see which seeds are likely to bring about the highest yield.
This is one of the demonstration centers in the liberated areas in Abagele district. The soil is tested for its suitability for crops, such as maize and teff, and the seeds are tested for their yield and resistance to pests. Extension workers bring farmers here from the surrounding areas so that they can see what we are doing and learn from our experiments. At the demonstration site, we show the advantages of terracing, the use of compost, and early ploughing. We keep records of seed productivity. We record the dates of sowing, when the crops start to sprout, when they are ready for harvest, and what kind of problems we had with pests. We have instruments such as a rain gauge and thermometer, so that we can record rainfall and daily temperatures.
Another area where progress has been made is health. For several years, the health department of the TPLF has been trying to establish a health service that meets the needs of the people and which Tigray can afford.
My name is Dr. Gabrab from the health department. And what I would like to brief you regarding the public health services in Tigray is that there are many problems, among which the main ones are the drought, war, and epidemic disease problems. These are the three main problems of the of health in Tigray. Here in the training school, we have been trying to develop courses for junior nurses, senior nurses, junior midwives, physiotherapists to deal with the disabled, and others. So far, we've been doing well, and as a matter of developing a health system, we've been developing a public health system that is emphatic on preventive health services. The preventive policy is implemented by the public itself. We managed to vaccinate around 150,000 meningitis vaccines this year, and the same last year. But as for the measles and whooping cough and other vaccinations, we want to lay down a cold chain system.
My name is Hadas, and I'm the senior nurse here in Mekelle Hospital. I was working here under the Dirge. In those days, priority was given to the military and to party members. Members of the public were often turned away. When the government left, I decided to stay. The most common diseases are TB, pneumonia, malaria, dysentery, and so on. Of course, the drought has weakened people and affected their health. Our problems here are shortages of staff, drugs, and medical equipment. We are very short of antibiotics and TB drugs.
In Tigray, as elsewhere, education is a key factor in development. Tigray is desperately short of educated personnel, and great efforts are being made to reorganize its education system. School directors from all over Tigray have met to discuss their problems.
We have been trying to organize education in Tigray since the Dirge left. We faced many problems. First, there was the Dirge's campaign of disruption and air raids. This meant that we could not teach during the daytime. The alternative was to have night schools, but there was no power, since the Dirge had destroyed the generators. The young people were also scattered about for fear of the air raids. This made it difficult to get them together. The drought was another problem because it created food shortages. Children often had no lunch because there was not enough food at home for the family. We still face enormous problems in the shortage of teachers and teaching materials like blackboards, chalk, books, and exercise books, desks, and chairs.
Young people in Tigray do not have to be persuaded to go to school. Children like these have to share textbooks with 7 others. They are hoping that people outside can help.
Do you have school today?
No.
Why not?
Because it's holiday.
It's a holiday today?
Yes.
What's your name?
My name is Kurom Haile Selassie.
Kurom Haile Selassie. And what's your name?
My name is Kflabra.
What's your name?
My name is Walter Omgassas.
Walton, which school do you go to?
Housing Junior Secondary School.
What's your name?
My name is Yerkal.
Yergalen, which grade are you? 4th grade?
Yes.
What's your name?
My name is Dawit Kidan Mare.
Dawit, what are your favorite subjects in school?
I like maths, science, and English.
Kifle, what are your favorite subjects?
I like geography, mathematics, and English.
Do you want to say anything to students in Europe and America?
Yes. Yes.
What would you like to say?
Hello. Hello.
How are you?
Anything else?
Please send us
Pencils, pen, exercise book, and
mathematics instruments and sport materials.
Sports materials.
Yes.
What sport do you like, Autumn?
Football and handball.
Volleyball.
Despite the war and years of recurrent drought, what strikes visitors to Tigray is the spirit of the people and their courageous efforts to build a new society. Services are being restored to the towns.
My name is Agai. I took a course in electrician while I was here in this organization. Since then I came here to Magale, and then I started to work here in Magale. Since we came here to Magale, since the Derg left Magale, he destroyed the power station, and then we came here and we started to repair all these generators. This generator, it was in main station. It was destroyed anyway, but we have repaired it. Then this one also, it's damaged. Part of it was damaged, but we have repaired everything. Now it's ready for service, but we have a shortage of spare parts and fuels and like that, and so on.
People make the most of what is available.
Is this how you normally plow? I had a pair of oxen, but one died because of the drought. So I've paired this donkey with the survivor. This is the period of the rains. The ground is wet. It is not too difficult to plow. How did you decide on this method? Well, it is better to plow with what is available than to stay idle, to have no crop and starve.
REST's role in coordinating all relief and development assistance is widely acknowledged.
REST is helping people with food aid. Many people have been saved as a result of this food distribution. We hope that this assistance will continue in the days to come. Everyone is suffering as a result of the drought. Tell the world to help us all, irrespective of our religion. We shall pray that you help and support REST. REST has helped us all, and we plead that support for REST is continued.
Once again, Tigray is entering another year of drought. But the lesson from 1989 to 90 is that drought does not have to be accompanied by famine. In its struggle for self-sufficiency and to break the famine cycle, Tigray needs development aid. It also needs peace. And with Mengistu's regime looking increasingly shaky, there are hopeful signs that peace is not far off.